away now from Zelensky's address to Congress. And it calls to mind, of course, another address to the United States Congress from yet another inspirational wartime leader, that of Winston Churchill in 1941. Let's bring in Jon Meacham right now. And of course, John, we've talked about Churchill. Of course, we could also talk about Mandela, a man's fight for freedom that inspired the world. Lech Walesa in the Gdansk shipyards in 1980. And here now, Zelensky, a man who seems, in the words of Bobby Kennedy, to have the power, along with his fellow countrymen and women, the power to bend history itself. Talk about the moment we're in today and what we've been seeing over the last 3 to 4 weeks, not only from the United States, but also from a revitalized and reawakened Europe.
It's remarkable. You know, the Churchill analogy is fascinating, but as you know, if you take one step back, you realize Churchill spoke to Congress, I think, 3 times, twice during World War II and then once again during the Cold War during his second premiership. But all those speeches came after America was already in the war as a full ally. It was after Pearl Harbor. It was after Hitler had invaded. It was after Japan had declared war on us. Hitler declared war on us. So if you think about it, this is as if Churchill had been invited in 1939 or 1940 to address the Congress. So he was always he privately lobbied so much, Franklin Roosevelt, for arms, for aid. He said, that things are afoot which will be told as long as the English language is spoken in any corner of the globe, when he talked about the British defiance. He talked about British defiance, and I suspect Zelensky, he alluded to Churchill when he addressed the British Parliament. It wouldn't surprise me if there's something from the American speeches that Churchill gave in this speech today. And remember, the great one was the French general who had dismissively said that Britain would have her neck wrung like a chicken. And Churchill said, some chicken, some neck. And there's a defiance here. And Churchill embodied that then. And in a fascinating way, Zelensky has, I think, exceeded any expectations in terms of both substantive and spiritual leadership. I think he's captured the imagination of much of the free world. And when foreign leaders like Mandela, like Churchill, when they address the Congress, it's almost as if there's this virtual conversation unfolding between the democracies, the folks around the world who are devoted to rule of law. It's a reminder that there are these larger questions that unite us. And remember, for people who, for very few people, I hope, who still see this as somehow removed from our concern, think about the drama of the 1930s and 1940s. And I understand the differences in the analogies, but broadly put, Franklin Roosevelt saw, and the West saw, Truman saw later, that democracies tend not to go to war with each other. How did World War I begin? Autocracies went to war. How did World War II begin? Hitler was on the march. Dictatorship was trying to take on democracy. And so, as Churchill would remind us often, with greatness comes responsibility. And we may not want to be involved in the causes of the world, but we don't have any choice, because those causes, to quote RFK, as you just said, we are all linked.
So we are about 8 minutes away now, as members of the Senate and the House will be attending, you see in the live pictures on your screen there, a virtual address, it's what it's called, by Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. He will be introduced by Speaker Pelosi. And as we get closer to the moment, I want to talk to you, Joe, more about this concept of Zelensky being able to bend history in a way that others in recent memory have not, really teaching Americans, and I'll speak just for Americans, about the preciousness of democracy, and so precious that we're actually at a frightening juncture right now. This is about all of us in the end. But teaching about democracy in a way that the extreme cracks and divisions that we've witnessed in recent years, those divisions that we've experienced, just haven't been able to show the importance of a free press, the importance and preciousness of a democracy. This man has been able to really pierce through that.
It's been a clarifying moment. You know, Mike Barnicle, I know you want to go to Jon Meacham next. Let me just say, I was hearing before, and it does grow so tiresome, hearing about the decline of America. My sixth grade teacher said America was in decline and may not last another decade. I must say, it's very, very tiresome by now, but I've been hearing over the past 5-6 years that we would never get back to a 9/11 moment when the Democratic and the Republican Party could come together. No, I knew we could. I knew we would. And here we are. You have Nancy Pelosi. You have Mitt Romney, people on the right and the left coming together to support a man who's a spiritual leader of democracy in the West and around the world right now, Mike Barnicle. And this has been a clarifying moment to show that some of the things that have divided us, well, they've just been silly. We see very clearly between right and wrong, from democracy and autocracy, from the illiberal democracies of Central and Eastern Europe, and from Russia, and what liberal democracy promises and what it inspires and what it's inspired in Ukraine.
You know, Joe, history is littered with the ghosts of those who have underestimated America at every turn, or nearly every turn, politically, economically, governmentally. America is strongest when America stands together, and America now stands together at least overseas in Europe. And the President of the United States has performed remarkably well, and we are about to see today another man who has met the moment, a man who several months ago, or perhaps as soon as 5 or 6 weeks ago, people would have looked at the President of Ukraine and said, well, come on, he's a comedian. But he has met the moment, and history is filled with people who have met the moment. I was rereading last night one of your favorite political speeches, and it's much more than a political speech in retrospect. Robert F. Kennedy's Ripple of Hope speech given at the University of Cape Town, South Africa, on June 6, 1966, 2 years to the day that he was assassinated. And to reread that speech today is to reread the essence of American hope going forward then and going forward today.
And those lines, again, one of the great lines from there, Jon Meacham, is when Bobby Kennedy says in Cape Town, South Africa, he said, few have the ability to bend history itself. And yet we find here with Zelensky, just like those union workers in Gdansk in 1980, just like Mandela, and let's go back to Lexington and Concord, just like people there. We have Zelensky, who seems to be bending history before our very eyes.
You know, the thrilling and terrifying thing about democracy is that, in fact, all of us in the end have the capacity to bend history. A democracy is the fullest manifestation of all of our dispositions of heart and mind. And yes, there are structural questions. And yes, as Senator Kennedy was saying in Cape Town, not all of us are given great epic scope. It's one of the great lessons of literature. George Eliot, the 19th century novelist, she wrote that not everyone can be a Saint Teresa, you know, and found an order and change all of Christendom. But everyone can try to make, as she put it, life a little less difficult to another. And in the end, those are the table stakes of democracy. And Zelensky has, you know, his disposition of heart and mind, Winston Churchill's disposition of heart and mind, John Lewis's disposition of heart and mind, the women of Seneca Falls, the people of Selma, the men who hit the beaches of Normandy, the people in Tiananmen Square, the people who brought down the Berlin Wall. All of this may sound sentimental, but it has the virtue of being true, that those folks in this kind of mysterious yet discernible commerce between the leaders and the led made democracy what Lincoln called the last best hope.
Right.
And the key thing there is, yes, it's the last best hope, but it's also the best hope. And again, I don't want to get the kettle drums out. And we face enormous stresses here.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.